interested in this, one of the ways you can progress as far as you're moving toward the realization, right, is to stop trying to protect yourself. You know, to allow yourself to be exposed, knowing that that which is being exposed is what you're interested in disassociating from, right? And so what better way to do it than to put it out there, to be alienated, or annihilated, you know, to put it out there. On the other hand, you know, to ask questions is also useful because it allows the identity or the ego to make progress toward its own death. Right? So questions are very important. You know, in the teachers that I've studied, the most important aspect of what they have to share is the questions and answers, right? Because otherwise, you know, like I was saying earlier, you know, I can talk about how many ways I see to skin the cat, but that doesn't mean that what I'm saying will land anywhere. You know, I don't know. I have to have a target to talk. You know, I have to have a listening to talk to. I have to have a sense of what your understanding is to know what to say. Otherwise, I could be talking with the assumption that you have an understanding that you don't have, right? Or I could be talking with an assumption that you don't have an understanding that you do have. So the most powerful teaching is silence. That's why in this class, the most important time in the class is when we're doing the meditation practice and there's silence. That's the most powerful and most important teacher. Why? Because silence is non-conceptual. That's why meditation is a challenge, right? Because your mind can't meditate. Your mind can't do meditation. So you sit there and you're being still and you're being silent, right? And your mind's trying to meditate. But it can't meditate because meditation is non-conceptual. Right? The mind is a conceptual operation, right? Thinking is a conceptual process, is it not? Every thought you have is a concept, right? And the truth is non-conceptual. So you can never, it's impossible to think the truth. It's impossible to think the truth, Right? But we're so thoroughly conditioned to be a thinker that you can't help it. There's, you even when you sit and practice meditation, right, you'll find yourself noticing thoughts, but not just noticing thoughts, right, but thinking. You'll find yourself thinking, right, because of the fact that you're so thoroughly conditioned to identify yourself as a thinker. And of course, as long as that's the case, and concepts are the way that you're functioning, concepts create the world you are living in, concepts create who you consider yourself to be, right? That you stay in the bubble. You stay in the conceptual bubble all the time, as long as that's the case. And so part of what this is all about is seeing, not thinking. When you see things as they are, you're not thinking what you're seeing what you're seeing. It's not conceptualized. When you're seeing things as they are, it's very easy to see the truth. When you look rather than think, it's very easy to see the truth. When you look rather than think, it's very easy to see that who you consider yourself to be doesn't exist. It's very easy to see. It's very easy to see because what there is to see when you look is there's simply no evidence. There's simply no evidence for it. And then, when you get to a place, when you get to a place, you don't get to a place. When what happens, right, is the understanding is thorough enough, right, that you begin to see things as they are in a natural way. You just start seeing things as they are. You stop chasing the mirage. You stop. you know, when you get close to a mirage, you know, see, mirage is a good metaphor, right? Because you're thirsty, right? You're thirsty. You're thirsty for the truth. You're thirsty for self-realization, right? You're thirsty for enlightenment, right? And so you will head towards the mirage, and the mirage is everything I'm saying. The mirage is everything any teacher says, right? Because that's all conceptual, right? And the concepts are not the truth, right? So you'll head towards the mirage. You'll try and move towards these concepts. You'll try and use the concepts and get somewhere through the concepts. But as you get closer to the truth, like just as with the mirage, as you get closer to the mirage, you see it's not real, right? You get closer to the mirage, you're thirsty for the water, you're thirsty for the truth, but when you get closer, you see there is no mirage, there is no water, there is no truth. There is no truth in the concepts. The concepts point to the truth, but the concepts are not the truth. There is no truth in the concepts. So I was talking earlier about this business of skinning the cat, you know. Somebody asked a question. It was a good question, you know. Somebody asked a question. The question was, Frank asked a question. Give Frank some credit for asking the question. And the question was, you know, you teach a lot of different things. You talk about a lot of different things. You talk about a lot of different teachers. It seems that you're constantly learning and reading and studying and practicing, and then in class you keep sharing about those things with us. And it seems to be, there's a lot of difference in it, you know, it's one thing to the next, you know, one time there's no free will, you know, and other times it's talking about the fact that you don't exist and, you know, all kinds of different things. And my answer was, yeah, that's true, you know, I'm talking about these things in a lot of different conceptual ways, right? A lot of different ways to skin the cat. There's an infinite number of ways to skin the cat. There's an infinite number of possibilities in terms of the conceptual ways that you could talk about this. So there's no end to that, right? However, what I said was, but the important thing is to understand, to keep your eye on the cat, not the different ways to skin the cat, right? But keep your eye on the cat. In other words, every way that I speak of about skinning the cat is pointing to the cat. Okay, it's always pointing to the cat, right? And then you know, as this process continues, and you begin to look more at the cat instead of the ways to skin it, right? Eventually, you realize there's no cat. That's the cosmic joke, right? Eventually you realize there's no you. There is no you. There is no you who's trying to skin a cat. There is no you who's trying to be realized. There is no you to be enlightened. And that's enlightenment, right? But you see, that's a concept, right? So the concept that there is no you to be enlightened, heard by the one who's trying to be enlightened, right, will seem to be, I see, right? But no, you don't see. You can't see. You can't see. Because as I said before, as long as the idea exists that enlightenment is possible, it's guaranteed that you will not be enlightened. That's the, you know, the personality stronghold on its as far as its domination, right, is founded on its signature, which is that you can do something, right, the doer, right? That's the signature of the person, of the ego. I can do something, right? So as long as you think you can do something, that'll guarantee you can't do anything, right? And then as long as you think that it's possible for you to become enlightened and you continue to make efforts to do that, that will also guarantee that that will never happen. It's like I was sharing earlier, you know, when I was lying in bed this morning, the voice in my head said, "You're enlightened," right? Now that's a good sign, because it means that there's a last-ditch effort being made by the person, by the ego, right, to claim enlightenment. It claims everything, doesn't it? It claims everything, right? And nothing's happened. See, when I say it claims everything, what I mean is everything that happens doesn't just happen, it happens to me. That's the claim. Even enlightenment. Even enlightenment. So the voice in your head says you're enlightened. If you accept that and you say, oh, wow, good, now, finally made it, right? You're screwed. You're screwed because now the phantom is enlightened. Now that which doesn't exist is claiming to be enlightened, right? But if when that happens, you see it for what it is, right? In other words, if when that happens, you recognize that it's a meaningless statement, right? Then you pass the test. Then you pass the test. And then you can lay there and continue to watch the show, right? You can lay there and continue to watch the show, meaning that, see, once you know what you're not, right? Then what you are can watch what you're not's doing all the time. You see what I'm saying? Once you know what you're not, what you are can watch what you're not doing all the time, right? So after that happened, I could lay there and I could watch the thought process play, you know. Oh, what time is it? I have 10 more minutes to sleep. Oh, I would rather not get up at all. You know, but it's really an interesting and amazing experience to watch that, knowing that you're not that, to watch it play, right? And that's the experience that a sage has. A sage has the experience that I'm not being a person anymore. I identify with being a person because I have to do that to function in the world, right? But I'm not being a person, I'm identified with being a person. I'm not being a body, I'm identified with being a body because that's necessary to function in the world. But I know what the real deal is. And the thing that is not something that I continue to do is to consider that I'm a doer. To consider that I'm a doer. When I planned to go on this meditation retreat that I mentioned earlier, right? I planned on it, you know, a couple of months ago. Right? But I'm wise enough these days to know that doesn't mean anything in terms of what's going to happen. It just means I planned on it. In the meantime, a variety of different things happened, one of which was my wife became ill, right? So when that happened, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe what's not going to happen is the meditation retreat, right? And then as time got closer, she got better and stabilized. And, oh, that's interesting. Maybe what's going to happen is the meditation retreat, you see? But you stop looking at it as if you're doing anything and you start looking at it like watching what's cascading out, right? Because everything that happens precedes what's going to happen next. Right? So you start looking at it that way and seeing. And and you're clear and you know that you don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, if you want to see God in action, if you want to see God in action, pay attention to what's happened. That's God in action. And we talk about this business of predestination, you know, that everything is predetermined, you know, that destiny exists, right? But the thing that you have to be clear about, and this is what I tried to get across about this free will notion, right? Is that just because the understanding is that you don't have free will, that doesn't change that it occurs to you that you do. Just because the understanding is that you don't have free will, that doesn't change that the way it occurs to you is that you do. Therefore, you just continue to do what you're doing, you know, in terms of you make decisions, you choose things, you think about things, you know, you continue to do that, right? You have to continue to do that. It's the only way you can operate, right? However, the understanding can still be that you know you don't have free will. And it's the understanding that makes the difference, you see. It's the understanding about what's true and what's real that makes the difference. It doesn't have to change the way things are happening. It doesn't have to change the way things are happening. It's the understanding that makes the difference. Dreams when you dream and sleep seem real when you're dreaming and you're asleep, right? Even for my dog, he barks when he's sleeping. If you watch a dog when he's dreaming, he'll bark in his sleep because he's dreaming something and he's barking, right? So it seems real when you're dreaming, right? But this understanding is that that's just one dream state. This is the other dream state. And when you wake up from this dream state, it's the same as when you wake up from that dream state. It's a relief, right? It was only a dream, right? But this goes back to one of the basic concepts, as I said earlier. There's certain basic concepts that you can keep referring to with what you're dealing with, what you're questioning, what you're confused about, and those basic concepts will answer the questions. So, you know, what Brian said is that, you know, what did you say?
Either drug
or
dreams, they're just as real.
Yeah, he said that, you know, drug experiences that come from drugs and dream states and so forth, it's all the same stuff, right? And based on what I was saying earlier, if you go back to the concept that it's all there is consciousness, that answers that question, you see. It's all an appearance. It's all an appearance. No matter what it is that's happening, it's just an appearance. There is no substantial reality to what's happening. It's an appearance. You're an appearance. Life is an appearance. Dreams are an appearance. Drug states, hallucinations are appearances. It's all just an appearance. The experience of the truth of yourself happens. You're always awake. You're always awake. So when you're sleeping, you're awake that you're sleeping. You're always aware. See, when I spoke earlier about the idea that when the awakening happens, when what happens is you begin to be the truth, right? That you then become a witness to everything. Now you are being the awareness, which is always happening, right? Therefore, when the body sleeps and the mind dreams and everything, the awareness is there for that. It's there all the time. It's there all the time. And it's witnessing everything that's happening. It's watching the person's life happen. All of it. The thoughts, the feelings, sensations, what's happening in the world, watching this whole thing happen. Right? So all there is consciousness, and consciousness is watching itself. Consciousness is aware of itself. It's watching itself. Yeah, the thing about it is when death happens, people cry, right? That's what happens, right? That's what happens. But the reality of it is, it goes back to what I said earlier, right? The understanding is what makes the difference. And the understanding is there is no death. There is no death. The body dies, but there is no death, right? And people cry. That's what happens. There's no right or wrong. You know what I mean? There's no right or wrong. There's nothing. And that's one of the things that I try to get across here. Even if you don't get a lot of this, right? If you just get this one concept, it'll make a profound difference in your life, right? And this one concept is everything is as it should be. Everything is as it should be. Thy will be done. But you don't even have to look at it that way. Everything is as it should be. Nothing is out of place, right? But your mind will never stop producing the idea that something should be different. Your mind will never stop. There is no need to search for anything. When you're being who you are, there is nothing to search for. There is nothing to accomplish. And you are always who you actually are. Therefore, there never is anything to search for or accomplish. Unless you don't know who you are, and then you think there's something to search for and accomplish. And you just have to go through that. It's like, you know, it's like being a teenager, right? You know, teenagers don't know their ass from a hole in the ground, right? But they act like they do, and they're trying to get somewhere. They're trying to be somebody, right? They just have to go through that process. One of my favorite teachers used to, you know, Werner Erhard, when he was doing the S training, one of the things that he would do is he'd scream at people and say, you know, you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground. You're an asshole. In the beginning of the training, everybody was upset about that. You did it, so you know, right? And in the end of the training, everybody's proud to be an asshole. You know, I do recommend that you do that every once in a while. And the reason that I recommend that you do that, even the 10-day, I think is a good thing to do, because it will really do a lot of damage to your ego. You know, if you go and do an intensive retreat, even the one that I'm going to do, which is not that intense in my opinion, for a lot of people that would be very intense, right? But even if you do something like that and you come out of your routine, right, and you deal with the unknown, you don't know who's going to be there, what's going to happen, you know, what it's going to be like, right? That does damage to your ego. Your ego doesn't like that. Your ego does not want that, right? And so, you know, that's why it's not something that a lot of people do. It's also why a lot of these meditation retreats are in beautiful places in the Caribbean and everything, right? So people could act like they're doing a retreat, but it's really a vacation. All right, if you don't have anything else, I'll send you on your way.